Hey, welcome World Entertainment, and of course, Furiosa and Mad Max Saga is about to drop on the big screen for everyone. Of course, the prequel to Mad Max Fury Road, this time starring Anna Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth. George Miller has obviously been doing the rounds, and of course, he spoke a while ago about he still has plans for Mad Max and the character of Mad Max, that he wants to do a new Mad Max film. Something he came up with and ideas they threw about and start forming a script while doing Fury Road. And of course, one of the big questions we've all had is it going to be Mel Gibson? Will you bring Mel Gibson back? And of course, he said then that it was actually going to be set in between Thunderdome and Fury Road, which would pretty much rule out the idea of Mel Gibson being brought back. But the question about Mel Gibson has come up again to him, saying, like, is there plans for a old man Mad Max? Will we see Mel Gibson ever don the clothes and get back into the car and be Mad Max again? And unfortunately, George Miller has ruled out Mel Gibson returning as Mad Max. So we'll have a look at this article and see why he rules it out. And to be honest, it's a bit of a cop-out and a bit of a dumb idea. But we'll have a look. That's my opinion anyway. I know there's other people who say they're sick of seeing old man this and all man. But at the same time, you want to see the characters you've known and loved and even grew up with be the people who played them first time round. Doesn't mean he has to be down and out. Just means he's an older version. But anyway, we'll have a look at this. So, the world of Mad Max is growing with the upcoming release of Furiosa and Mad Max Saga, but according to director George Miller, it will likely be without Mel Gibson. Well, we know Mel Gibson's not in this one. Gibson appeared as the first iteration of George Miller's iconic post-apocalyptic survivor way back in 1979, and returned for two sequels, The Road Warrior in 81 and Beyond Thunderdome in 85. When Miller rebooted the franchise with 2015's Mad Max Fury Road, Tom Hardy replaced Mel Gibson in the infamous role. With Furiosa and Mad Max Saga and another sequel in the works, some fans are hoping Gibson may return to Miller's genre-defining world. But the director has squashed these hopes. Speaking to Jake's Takes about Furiosa, George Miller was asked whether there was a possibility that Mel Gibson could return to the world of Mad Max. While the director didn't completely rule out the possibility, he did say that it was highly unlikely. When rebooting the Mad Max franchise, the director said he did so with the intention of rejuvenating the characters with youthful actors, and couldn't envision an older version of Max. Miller said, "There's no story that I have that has an older character, like Harrison Ford or so on. It's not like an Unforgiven or one of those movies where it's really an old burnt out person coming back one more time." While Miller is renowned for his meticulous planning, with the original script for Mad Max Fury Road being an entire room filled with storyboards, the director said he hasn't thought about where Gibson's version of Max would be in the current timeline. And he said, "I don't know what happens to Max when he gets into his 60s. I haven't even thought of that." So you're hearing there that he's not completely ruling it out, but he wants it to be younger versions. This is where I think it's a bit of a cop-out and late. Why do you want it to be younger versions? The guy is 80. He's hitting 80. It's not like he's going to be directing a crap ton more of these movies. So why does he want to go backwards, basically, to just younger versions of these cars? We've seen the younger version of Max. You know, that's the thing. It's kind of like the Gollum idea that they're going to do with the Lord of the Rings new movies, which is now 2 movies, that the story is going to be about Gollum. They're going to make a 2-hour movie out of a paragraph in the book. And as I said in a video about that, the problem with doing that is you remove all the stakes and stuff, because you know, well, the character is in Fellowship of the Rings and he's in Two Towers and Return of the King, and Return of the King is when he meets his demise. So we know that nothing's going to happen to that character up to those points. You going backwards with Max, like telling the story of Max in between Thunderdome and Fury Road, removes the stakes that's around Max, because we know nothing will happen to him, especially as he does appear for a very brief moment. Apparently it's a blink and you'll miss it at the very end of the movie. A cameo that is literally going to be a throwaway cameo, which is him up on a hill apparently next to the car staring down at Furiosa. So if you want to be telling the younger versions, and like they're saying Fury Road was a reboot of the franchise, it wasn't, it was still meant to be a direct sequel to Thunderdome, which is also why people really complained at the time. It's like, hang on, why are you not bringing Mel Gibson back? Especially when George Miller was like, oh yeah, it's a sequel. But then they kind of, because they cast Tom Hardy, people were trying to say, oh, I think it's more of a reboot. But I think it's a mistake not to bring Mel Gibson back as Mad Max for at least one more outing. You know, again, he says there that he doesn't want to see like the old burnt out kind of version of. Again, you do not have to have that version. Just because he's older doesn't mean he has to be burnt out and all grumpy. He doesn't have to, like he says, Harrison Ford. I'm assuming he's referring to not King Skull, what's it called? Bleeding Dial of Destiny. I'm assuming he's talking about that version of Harrison Ford's being Indiana Jones, where it was just like, let me die. I'm assuming that's what he's talking about. You don't have to have him that way. He can still be this triumphant hero. You can still have him out there. Well, triumphant, he's more kind of a reluctant hero. But you could still have him out there just kicking ass. Like, Gibson still has it. He's still jacked. You name it. Like, the guy is still great. I don't understand why George Miller at 80 wants to go backwards with these characters rather than forwards with the character. Again, he's not going to have that many films after him. He's talking about doing this Mad Max sequel, sequel prequel thing, you know, the in between Thunderdome and Fury Road or Furiosa. How long is that going to take him to actually do? Look how long it took him to do this movie after Fury Road. It takes him that long. The guy would probably almost be 90 and be done and dusted. So you're probably going to look at other people coming in anyway to take over this franchise. It's a weird take, and it sounds like a bit of a lazy take. I don't want to have to try and come up with a story for what Max did after those films. I'd rather tell like what he did in between these movies, because it means he knows where he ends up by Fury Road, so he can just easily fill in the gaps. Oh yeah, he got out Thunderdome and he just did this and he did that. As opposed to, why don't you just tell that story but with the older version and brand new stories that's not leading into a Furiosa or a Fury Road or anything like that. It's a bizarre choice. But he's ruling it out, but not completely ruling it out, so God knows what'll happen. I would love to see one more outing of Mad Max with Mel Gibson. Who wouldn't? You know, it's the same as we all want to see one more outing of Conan the Barbarian with Schwarzenegger. At least one more Rambo. Maybe a Rocky with, like a proper Rocky, not a Creed. A proper Rocky with Stallone. Not where he's boxing, but you know, where he could be training someone up again. Just something, you know. But anyway, we'll have to wait and see whether or not Miller even ever gets around to making another one, whether someone else gets to take the reins and does say, I'm bringing Gibson back. Time will tell. But with that, I will leave it out for this one. So cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.